الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. One of the important subjects in the Quran is the subject of Al-Iʿrad. And Al-Iʿrad is to turn away from something, is avoiding something, aversion. And the way that the Quran present the subject, most of the time, it's something that is evil. This is one of the characteristics of the disbelievers. They make i'rad, they turn away from the truth. And this is one of the types of kufr, one of the types of disbelief. Disbelief is disbelief. But people have different reason why they disbelieve, one of which is they're not interested. They just turn away from even listening to the truth. So this is a subject that is repeated throughout the entire Quran that shows this is the ways of the disbelievers, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala punished them for that. The message come to them, but they turn away from it. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best what's in the hearts. And He subhanahu wa ta'ala, the one that created these hearts. And what fits the hearts perfectly is that the person is or should seek the truth and not to be arrogant. And that is in every single human being. Some people, they listen to the truth and arrogantly they turn away from it. Some people, they turn away from even want to listen. They're not interested in the truth to start with. And this is a punishable act. They're the one that chose to turn away from the truth. And that's why when the ulama define al-i'rad, they talk about insiraful qalbi an al-shay, is when the heart turns away from something. It's the heart. And one of the ways, or the most important way to implement something in our heart is that physically we do things so that the hearts will be affected. Meaning if someone wants to have the khushu' in the salah, make lots of salah. Don't wait for something called khushu' to come. But rather if you make salah, وَاسْتَعِينُوا بِالصَّبْرِ وَالصَّلَاةِ وَإِنَّهَا لَكَبِيرَةٌ إِلَّا عَلَى الْخَاشِعِينَ. Seek help in sabr, in patience, and in salah. And as-salah is kabira, is huge, is great, is big, except for those who have khushu'. So the khushu', yes, from the beginning, but if a person doesn't have it, make lots of salah. This is the truthfulness in oneself. That a person want to seek the pleasure of Allah. He has the physical means. He can stand and make ruku' and sujood. And he exert himself, make himself patient. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sees what's in his heart. The more he does this, the more that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will open his heart with these matters of goodness in it and khushu' and so on. And one of which is, if someone wants to stay away from al-i'rad, is to do the opposite, is to go forward to what is benefiting. So, for example, there is the ayat, and there are many ayat of the Quran. وَكَأَيٍّ مِّنْ آيَةٍ فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ يَمُرُّونَ عَلَيْهَا وَهُمْ عَنْهَا مُعْرِضُونَ. How many ayat, how many signs in the heavens and the earth, they pass by it, meaning the disbelievers, while they are in the state of mu'ridun. They're turning away from it. Not necessarily physically. They see it, they hear it, but the hearts insarafat al-qulub. The hearts are diverted away. So this avoidance, which is something that is so evil for them. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when He took the covenant from the sons of Adam, when He commanded Adam to go down to the earth, and every time the guidance come from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, whoever follows it, فَمَنِ اتَّبَعَ هُدَايَ فَلَا يَضِلُّ وَلَا يَشْقَى. Whoever follows my guidance, he is never to be deviated and never to be perished. So this is one group. The other group, وَمَنْ أَعْرَضَ عَنْ ذِكْرِي فَإِنَّ لَهُ مَعِيشَةً ضَنْكًا وَنَحْشُرُهُ يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ أَعْمَى قال رب لم حشرتني أعمى وقد كنت بصيرا قال كذلك أتتك آياتنا فنسيتها وكذلك اليوم تنسى. The other group is, this is the entire humanity. Those who follow the revelation from Allah. This is from the time of Adam alayhi salam. And this is in the fitrah, in the pure nature of every human being. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala took the covenant from every soul, from every human being, that whenever the wahy, the revelation from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala comes, follow it. فَمَنِ اتَّبَعَ هُدَايَ, the guidance of Allah. فَلَا يَضِلُّ وَلَا يَشْقَى. The other group, وَمَنْ أَعْرَضَ عَنْ ذِكْرِ, those who turn away from the dhikr of Allah, from the remembrance of Allah, فَإِنَّ لَهُ مَعِيشَةً ضَنْكًا, they will have a ma'isha, or a life that is dank, very tight, miserable. And al-ma'isha dank is explained in many different ways, one of which is in the grave. Doesn't have to be in this worldly life, as people might think, well, a person turns away from the truth, but he looks like he's enjoying his life. Yes, he's intoxicated. So he enjoys this life that he's in because he's intoxicated. He does not have aql. He does not have intellect. He does not look ahead of what's going to happen after 100 years from where he's enjoying himself. So turning away from the wahy from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala causes the person to be like this. And that's why this is definitely an evil thing. And it can be in different levels. Like many or even all of the characteristics mentioned, every characteristics mentioned in the Quran about the kuffar, characteristics, sifat. This is in the category of kufr. They have the ultimate characteristics of this. So al-i'rad is complete i'rad. This is the ultimate turning away. But the same characteristics, if a believer has it, then it becomes sinful. And he's within the circle of Al-Islam, but he turns away. He turns away from what is benefiting for him. Not turning away from Al-Iman wal-Islam, but turning away from the halal. And when you turn away from, it has to be two. Nobody turns away from something and then he becomes in vacuum. No, you turn from two. So when you turn away from the halal, that means you turn to the haram. If a person turns away from what is righteous, he turns to what is wicked, and so on. So it can be in the levels of sins. And therefore, al-i'rad an dhikrillah, to turn away from the dhikr of Allah, from the Qur'an, from the revelation from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And as we said, someone does not have any interest in it. Just leave me alone. I'm enjoying my life. Just this is i'rad. This is not someone is excused, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best what's in his heart, and he's supposed to be a seeker of the truth. And there is a good i'rad. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned some of the praiseworthy aversion or avoidance, because we are commanded to avoid what is evil. فأعرض عمن تولى عن ذكرنا فأعرض عمن تولى عن ذكرنا ولم يرد إلا الحياة الدنيا. This is a command from Allah, order from Allah, because when we read the Quran, it's not just stand and walk and make sujood. It's not only the physical actions. It's something that can be very general, and all the Quran addresses the heart, and then the details of this is our life. So when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَأَعْرِضْ عَمَّنْ تَوَلَّ عَنْ ذِكْرِنَا, turn away from the one that turned away, tawalla, he turned away from our dhikr. So how can someone, after hearing this, he goes forward and he turns to the one that turned away from the dhikr of Allah? He's been sinful. Then he should not blame anyone but his own self if he got affected by the one that turned away from the dhikr of Allah. So, and the i'rad again is i'radul qalb, that you have barriers in your heart. You turn away from those who turned away from the dhikr of Allah. وَلَمْ يُرِدِ إِلَّا الْحَيَاةَ الدُّنْيَا. You turn away from the one that did not want anything except this worldly life. This is his ultimate goal, his objective is nothing but this worldly life. What does it mean? That means when you see him, you turn away and you look the other way? No, you have to deal with people and you have to be kind to people. Your heart is turned away. You're not allowing things to affect your heart. And the physical actions affect the hearts, of course. So the person has to work on himself, so that, again, as mentioned before, one of the advices that Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah, he said, "Man tafa'tu," I've never benefited, or the most benefit that I got from Shaykh al-Islam, his Shaykh Hussain Taymiyyah rahimahullah, an advice he told him, he said, do not make your heart like a sponge. Make your heart like a zujaja, like a glass. Sponge, that means it absorbs everything. This is only if you're reading Quran, if you're in a session of knowledge, if you're listening to some maw'idah, some reminder, make your heart a sponge. And this is the opposite, is not good. For someone to listen to the Quran, to the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, and his heart is like a glass, nothing goes in. The surface there is hard. This is condemned in the Quran. And this is a form of i'rad, turning away. He might be physically present, but he's not interested. But rather to absorb these things in one's heart. That a person, what is the meaning of getting it into one's heart? What is good? Is that the person, he has the need of it. He wants to have it. He has the zeal for it. This is the most important thing in his life. And then when he gets it, he understands it. He understands, for example, the tafsir of the ayah, what is meant by this. and then he works with his intellect, with his aql, with his heart. How can I implement this? How can I be among these people? How can I avoid this? What's the end result of this? What's in the hereafter? And all of that within the ilm and the knowledge of the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. And then he would make himself, by the help of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, steadfast upon this. So he has to have patience. He has to make mujahada, striving with his own self, and to keep on reminding himself of what he already took upon himself, that he would take that path, and so on. And not to leave ourselves like this, whatever comes along. And this is what the fitan that we have with social media and the like of this. This is a command from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make i'rad, not to allow them to dictate for you what you watch and what you don't watch, what you listen to, what you don't listen to. Right? So this is a very dangerous thing, and this is something that affects directly one's heart and one's iman. So it's a decision for a person to make, and whoever trains himself by the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to be able to know what to turn away from, what not to turn away from, and turning from what to what. This is all requires, again, the ilm, and a person never goes wrong, especially, again, in this month, is to turn oneself to the Qur'an and to make ourselves immersed in it and question anything else. The default is that we're turning away, unless it's proven to be something that is good for us to turn to. So these types of individuals that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ordered us, فَأَعْرِضْ عَمَّنْ تَوَلَّ عَنْ ذِكْرِنَا, turn away from the one that turned away from our dhikr. وَلَمْ يُرِدِ إِلَّا الْحَيَاةِ الدُّنْيا ذَلِكَ مَبْلَغُهُم مِّنَ الْعِلْمِ. This is their ultimate knowledge. This is the only thing that they know. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave you, O Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, and this ummah, the book that has the knowledge of this dunya and the hereafter and every single matter of the truth in every single detail. The truth that now the world that we live in, with its darknesses, with its confusion, with its distractions, the ultimate truth is in the book of Allah. This is the saved words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Everything else can be easily distorted. Everything else can be changed and manipulated except the book of Allah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala promised for it to be saved. And where is the duty of the ummah when it comes to the Quran? To turn away from the Quran, to listen to X, Y, and Z, and people that have no knowledge whatsoever, and deviance, and the hearts are only immersed in this worldly life. And a person listens. A person might say, but I'm not really giving my hearts to it. مَنْ اعْتَادَ سَمَاعِ الْبَاطِلِ. This is the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As also Shaykh Santana, when he said about these types of verses, whoever gets used to listening to al-batil, to falsehood, he will be affected by it. This is a must. If it's something that is, you get overpowered, you heard it, something that a person has to deal with it, it's different. But someone is constantly being bombarded and exposed to falsehood. Don't think that a person then is immune in this case. And the most precious thing is our hearts, to protect our hearts from what is evil. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also, when he said about the good i'rad, the good turning away, خذ العفو وأمر بالعرف وأعرض عن الجاهلين. خذ العفو, take what's extra from the manners of people. Don't go after every single right from others, especially those who are close to you and things like this. This is the ayah that is very comprehensive in akhlaq and manners. If a person wants to have good manners, خذ العفو وأمر بالعرف, and command and enjoying what is good and what is righteous according to the deen of Allah and what's known to the people to be good. وأعرض عن الجاهلين, turn away from the ignorant ones. Not turn to the ignorant ones, turn away from them with your heart. Do not make your heart turn to them. And there are, again, there's so many verses that has the specific word of Al-Iʿrad. اقترب للناس حسابهم وهم في غفلة معرضون. The hisab, the reckoning for the people, the day of judgment, اقترب. The creator of this dunya and the hereafter, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying to us that the day of judgment is very near. And as it's already established, إذا مات العبد قامت قيامته. If a person dies, his qiyamah already established. He's already in the hereafter, the first stage of the hereafter. So اقترب للناس حسابهم, their hisab is very near while they're doing what? Concerned about this, preparing themselves? No. هم في غفلة. They are in ghafla, forgetfulness, معرضون. Forgetfulness, and they're turning away. Not just غفلة, but they are turning away and in state of غفلة. ما يأتيهم من ذكر من ربهم محدث إلا استمعوه وهم يلعبون لاهية قلوبهم. every time dhikr, remembrance from Allah, the wahi from Allah comes to them, they are turning away from it. من الرحمن, from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the most merciful. إلا كانوا ما يأتيهم من ذكر من ربهم محدث إلا استمعوه وهم يلعبون. They're listening to it, but they're playing. The heart is not there. لاهية قلوبهم. Their heart is in lahu, amusement, distracted, even though they can listen, like a cow listening to the voice or the dog listening to whistling, but the heart is not there. So this is something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala warned the believers. This is how to implement the Qur'an in our life. And therefore the i'rad, as we said, since it's in the heart, then we have to watch what we see and what we hear. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in many verses in the Qur'an talks about what we hear, what we see. واصبر نفسك مع الذين يدعون ربهم بالغداة والعشي يريدون وجهه ولا تعد عيناك عنهم تريد زينة الحياة الدنيا. Make yourself have sabr with those who invoke Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the morning and in the evening. Make yourself have patience to be with the believers. What type of believers? Those who are in the masajid, in the houses of Allah, making ibadah, worshipping Allah, making dhikr of Allah, learning the deen of Islam. This is not going to be the easy way, because this requires sabr. And then وَلَا تَعْدُ عَيْنَاكَ عَنْهُمْ. Do not make your eyes, ta'du, that means go beyond them. And this is how the i'rad comes to the person, is when the eyes get attracted, the hearing. So وَلَا تَعْدُ عَيْنَاكَ عَنْهُمْ تُرِيدُ زِينَةَ الْحَيَاةِ الدُّنْيَا. That you want the adornment of this life, you turn away from them. وَلَا تُطِعْ مَنْ أَغْفَلْنَا قَلْبَهُ عَنْ ذِكْرِنَا. The ayat, and always the dhikr is mentioned. Do not obey the ones that we أَغْفَلْنَا قَلْبَهُ عَنْ ذِكْرِنَا. We made his heart in forgetfulness from the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And as if you remember the hadith of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, even in some such details, very small details, but it's not small. When خبر الثلاثة, and the hadith is in Bukhari and others, the Prophet ﷺ, like this, sitting with his companions in the masjid and teaching them. 3 men came. One came, فَوَجَدَ فُرْجَ فِي الْحَلْقَةِ. They were sitting in a circle, and he found an opening, a space in it. He sat in it. And a second one came. He did not find a space. He sat خَلْفَهُمْ, behind them, like how things should be when a person enters. A third one came, فَأَعْرَض. The word فأعرض, that means he turned away, he left. So the Prophet ﷺ, wahi from Allah is coming down. He said, أَلَا أُخْبِرُكُمْ بِخَبَرِ الثَّلَاثَةِ. Should I inform you about the 3, those who came? As for the first one, آوى إلى الله فآواه الله. He sought refuge in Allah, so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala became his refuge. Refuge in Allah in doing what? In coming to the masjid, in learning the deen of Allah. This is seeking refuge in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You seeking protection from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is how the Prophet ﷺ described it. This is a huge matter. This is a great matter by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us sincerity, give us the steadfastness to do what is right, there is nothing more valuable than this. And the hadith and the ayat, and this is so many. To come to the house of Allah, to make ibadah, to listen to Qur'an, to listen to hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. This is someone that, al-iwa is when someone is running away from what's harmful, what's going to ruin him, and he finds a fortified place, a protected place, a safety. This is how the masajid, this is how the dhikr of Allah, this is how the durus of ilm, right? So this is the first one. The second one, istaha min Allah, fastahi Allahu min. He was shy from Allah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was shy from him. He sat in the back, and that's also a good thing. That means Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the most high. He bestowed his mercy upon him, but not like the first one. But he still receives a great reward from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And as for the third one, he said alayhi salatu wasalam, فَأَعْرَضْ اللَّهُ عَنْهُ. He turned away. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala turned away from him. He is in loss. Even though in principle, this is not necessarily a sinful thing, but it can be in some situations, especially if a person is in knowledge that he is in need of. But it shows that this is part of our life, that when we come to the houses of Allah, learning the deen of Allah and things like this, and not to turn away. You turn away from learning the deen, this is a punishable act. A person, his heart will be locked. A person's heart will be deviated. He chose that because we have been commanded to go forward, not to make i'rad, not to turn away from what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created us for. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to purify our hearts and to make the Quran alive in our hearts and our actions. And as we said, it is not doesn't have to be that everything in the Quran give us the very small details in our life. So give us example of how to not to make i'rad. So okay, when you enter your home, it doesn't have to be this way. We can then take these general meanings and then we apply it with our phones, with our life, with our work, with our families, with everything. That either we turn to what is good and turn away from what is evil, or we will be questioned about this. And a person seek help from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to be steadfast upon the deen of Allah. وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك.